When it comes to the amount of rings that Hal Jordan has worn, he's actually worn quite a few over the years, but there has always been one specific ring that always has stuck out to me whenever Hal Jordan had worn it. And here today we're actually celebrating Black Lantern October, so I figured this would be an amazing time to cover Black Lantern Hal Jordan, the arguably most powerful iteration of Hal Jordan with a ring known to history. But how could the man with all the willpower find himself stronger while dead, and by definition having a lack of all emotions? Let's find out. So anytime I do one of these scaling videos, I always like to discuss how the characters kind of came to be in this situation specifically. So how did Hal Jordan wind up as a Black Lantern? Well, he essentially was dragged into the ring of Black Hand as the Guardians amped him, and that effectively put him in the place known as the Dead Zone, this strange place in cosmology. And it's where everyone goes after they dies, but it's also not heaven or hell. All important things to mention, maybe beyond creation depending on the higher ball interpretation that you have. However, this is also during the time that Volthoom is beginning his rampage of reality back in the universe. Sinestro manages to escape the Dead Zone thanks to Simon Baz being an idiot, and also attempts to defend Korugar against the Sinestro. Volthoom actually alters reality to make the planet still be destroyed, and it wipes out everyone on the populace. Why is any of that important? Because, as I said earlier, all those people die and they appear in the Dead Zone. This makes sense to Hal Jordan because he recognizes all of them as Korugar. And he also recognizes Sinestro is not capable of stopping this figure Volthoom, and thus he needs to do something. And Hal Jordan gets desperate inside the Dead Zone with a green ring that effectively can't work here. And when Hal gets desperate, Hal always does something stupid. And so in that moment of stupidity, Hal Jordan jumps. He jumps to his death in the Dead Zone. After all, he's already lost everything he cared about at this point in time. Everyone he has cared about, gone. And those who aren't will be soon due to the threat of Volthoom. So he jumps. And just like that, Hal Jordan dies. But Hal Jordan's death had purpose. His death wasn't just some attempt at suicide for an easy way out. His death was intentional, as even within death, Hal Jordan still used his will, something seen as impossible while dead, and out of sheer willpower, he forces a nearby Black Lantern ring onto himself, making him a genuine Black Lantern, like Black Hand. And don't worry about comparisons to him, we'll get to those later. In disbelief, Tomar-Ray, his now dead friend, doesn't understand how Jordan has even achieved such a feat, as it doesn't even make sense on how it could function like that. Hal tells him that he simply willed this to happen, and so it did. But even though he's made it here, he would still need some help if he's going to leave the Dead Zone, and it is entirely separate part of existence and a part of cosmology that is incredibly hard to traverse to creation from. And so Hal reaches out to someone who could bring him into reality, someone to serve as a conduit, the Indigo Tribe. Most specifically, Indigo 1. Utilizing the Indigo Tribe's ability to cycle between all of the emotions in the spectrum, they immediately teleport to the battlefield, tap into the concept of death, and summon Hal Jordan to the battlefield, utilizing their connection to Hal Jordan emotionally. Hal Jordan appears on the battlefield and spawns an entire army of the dead of everyone Volthoom has ever killed, which is a lot, because 10 billion years ago, he killed a lot of Malthusians, okay? And in the modern day, he's wiping out entire planets left and right and emotionally frying the universe itself. So that's pretty jacked to consider when you think about it. Black Lantern Hal Jordan immediately gets blindsided for questioning Sinestro and is blasted away from him, but is completely fine afterwards. Sinestro in this era has some pretty crazy scaling, but to be fair, this should be expected because Hal Jordan consistently tangos with him right around these ranges. And if you didn't believe me before about that action about Hal using will while dead, well, Volthoom seemed to think so. As a matter of fact, he even claimed that dead Hal Jordan was a better conduit of willpower than the actual central power battery itself. Hal, as a Black Lantern, also survived some pretty crazy emotional tampering and life web hacks of Volthoom here, and those have worked on every single person pretty much ever that it's been like dropped on. There's even Larfleeze couldn't break himself out of that stuff, and neither could Kyle Rayner. It's pretty crazy to think about. Keep in mind that these attacks are like fundamental life story attacks that disrupt your character throughout all of your time stream as well. Volthoom now having the very power to start the entire universe thanks to the willpower he took from Hal Jordan, he finds himself more powerful than he ever has before as Volthoom continues to assault all of reality with his newfound reality warping powers. Despite this, Black Lantern Hal Jordan manages to think of a plan that could solve the situation. Volthoom had grown to a power beyond those here, including even White Lantern Kyle Rayner, every Lantern Corps, and even Parallax Sinestro, so he really needed to pull in a game changer. Black Lantern Hal Jordan needed to go back to the Dead Zone. There he meets his father, who tells him that he's proud of him no matter what anyone says, and that what Hal is looking for is over there before he disappears. He points towards the tomb of Nekron for one of the dumbest feats I've ever seen. Hal wakes up Nekron and also summons him to Earth to join the battle. So keep in mind, Hal just has Nekron tier summoning hacks once inside your reality. And Nekron himself has absurd scaling, dude. That guy can one-shot all the Guardians of the Universe with just one of his hands. That guy has fought, like, the Anti-Monitor at one point in time, waved him and banished him away, waved the Spectre off of him and banished him to heaven instantaneously. This guy is on some shit, dude. Nekron doesn't really play around, so to summon someone like him, that's crazy. Also, on a side note, I literally just thought of this point while I'm recording the video. He didn't even have to charge the central Black Lantern power battery in order to summon Nekron into the reality. That battery was entirely destroyed. Hal just completely avoided all of that because he's that strong. It took most of the universe dying to grant the Black Lantern central power battery enough power to bring Nekron here. Hal is just that guy. But, I mean, come on, this is a super evil big bad guy, right? So there ain't no way in hell the concept of death is listening to freaking Hal Jordan, right? That just couldn't happen. And Nekron even says that, bro, you don't control me. But Hal says, yeah, whatever, you're gonna listen to me. And then Nekron just does what he wants for some reason and fights Volthoom. But the bigger problem was you couldn't just kill Volthoom at this point in time because he's so jacked. As if you kill him, you kill everything alive in existence. Something that Hal just, I don't know, knew of or just became aware of on the fly without explanation. I mean, he's not necessarily the brightest guy on the block, but like, I mean, he is pretty strategic, so I don't know, maybe he just figured that out. Anyway, Hal wanted to avoid that. Then, on the fly, Hal comes up with this insanely crazy big brain play with a hacks we've never seen before, and just absorbs all of the entire energy set that Volthoom has made up into this point in time. That is his form, like all the emotional spectrum, all the energies he has, everything. And why is that important? Well, this guy, Volthoom, was stated to have become the very energies that formed existence itself. Meaning, basically, Volthoom is like a knockoff version of the totality of Perpetua. He's kind of like on that tier, right? In terms of resistance, Volthoom has also negated Kyle Rayner's hacks on him, who goes on to 1v1 the entire emotional spectrum at the same time. And it's also noted that Volthoom didn't even think that Black Lantern rings would work on him anymore either. So he was aware of all of those things, ran into this thinking he was still confident could win, and Black Lantern Hal Jordan still drew all those energies out of him in like 2 panels. Without the very energies that created the universe, he was now safe to kill. And so, Nekron one-taps the physical form of Volthoom, destroying it and banishing him to the Dead Zone. But now we gotta deal with a rampaging Nekron, right? Who's gonna stop Nekron? As much as I would like to give Black Lantern Hal Jordan credit for that, I actually can't. Or can I? Because in a rather creative series of writing, that moment for Hal was so will-driven. This last one where he hangs out with the construct that Volthoom had made for himself. He walks over and comforts the kid, and that act of willpower draws a Green Lantern ring over to him from one of the dead Green Lanterns. He puts it on, and it just destroys his Black Lantern ring. Now, why is that important? Well, Hal Jordan was the connection to Nekron and his tether to our reality. Without Black Lantern Hal Jordan, Nekron can't exist here, and he immediately is banished back to the dead zone. And as I said before earlier, like, yo, by definition, you cannot feel willpower while holding a black ring, as you are dead. No life means no emotions, as emotions are life in the cosmology of DC. But Hal's will overrides all of those mechanics. Now, all those feats are pretty whack, so let's talk some other stuff to help reinforce the fact that Black Lantern Hal is on a tier beyond most other characters from the multiverse. Being a Black Lantern is already pretty fucked up, but being naturally born as a Black Lantern makes you far more powerful than random Black Lanterns you can come across. Well, what's a natural Black Lantern? It's a Black Lantern who committed suicide to embrace death, like Hal Jordan or Black Hand did when he first had become a Black Lantern. Now, Black Hand, there's the consistently most powerful Black Lantern in the cosmos, and it's important we reference Black Hand here as a metric. But let's say you think Black Hand is stronger than Black Lantern Hal Jordan because he has some pretty wild feats, so let's talk about some of those. Black Hand could resist the Source Wall's influence for a pretty extreme amount of time. He could summon the Source Titans off the wall, slap around New Gods pretty casually, slap around Hal Jordan and Sinestro, started the entire Blackest Night event by soloing most of the strongest magical users in existence, summoned Nekron, fought the entire Green Lantern Justice League and won, and there's a ton more, but this is his like TLDR essentially of badass feats, right? So if you think Black Hand scaling is around the Source Wall, this would place him as superior than that, if I'm being 100% honest. And if you don't agree with that, then this scan will change your mind. The Book of Black is a powerful book that has a lot to do with prophecies. Anything written inside that book is either true or will occur inevitably, such as when Kyle Rayner broke free the New Guardians from it by drawing their escape on its pages, and thus it happened. The book itself claims that Hal Jordan will be the greatest Black Lantern. This is something that low-key triggers Black Hand, as he thought he was supposed to be the greatest. I mean, Scar, the guardian of the Black Lantern Corps, said that he was literally the emotional entity of death, similar to how Parallax is the emotional entity of fear for this existence, and yet Hal is stated as superior to all of those things. So let's take that greatest Black Lantern statement and apply it in a little bit more of a cosmic way. The Book of Black should be the ultimate purveyor of knowledge, or anything Black Lantern or Nekron oriented inside our creation, or even outside of it as far as we are aware. And so the question remains, if Hal is the greatest Black Lantern, what all other Black Lanterns would he scale above just by that statement? Well, the first is a character I've already covered on the channel, so feel free to go check it out, and of course it's my homie Deathstorm. Deathstorm scaled above the life entity and threatened all of creation by doing so. He could whip up entire Black Lantern Justice League armies out of his reality warping rocks, and this statement of being the greatest Black Lantern would prove Black Lantern Hal Jordan is superior to him. But there's also the Elseworlds Krona, who managed to wield the power of a black ring, and he was pretty crazy jacked. We also have Limbo Lantern Sinestro, a white and black lantern who saved his existence in the dark multiverse by tampering with the Source Wall and other heroes. But the real crazy memes sit with the concept that Roy Harper had become a Black Lantern. This was during the Infinite Frontier, and Darkseid planned to use he and his ring to not only stop any form of multiversal travel, but to also control the entirety of the Great Darkness itself. But to be fair, we never got to see that exact plan happen. Low-key insane, and Black Lanterns have still gotten crazy solid scaling in their appearances, even to the modern day. So any of these figures would also be in the range for Black Lantern Hal Jordan in terms of scaling as well, demonstrating just how absurdly powerful Black Lantern Hal Jordan truly is, even though he's only had one canonical appearance. Think about that for a second. And while you're thinking about that, why don't you take a second to think about why are you not liked and subscribed? Because like nobody's liking and subscribing. Get down there, slam that bad boy out. And while you're thinking about that as well, consider becoming a member. I've got a lot of content coming out and some things release exclusively to them. So Just saying, make sure you join the homies, and if you're looking forward to more awesome content, it's gonna be there, trust me, it's coming. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video on Black Lantern Hal Jordan. He's one of my favorite iterations of Hal Jordan, because he just shows up out of nowhere and just starts wiling uncontrollably. Would you like to see Black Lantern Hal Jordan again? I think it'd be a pretty banger time. Not that I want Hal Jordan to die anytime soon, but with this new run, you never know. Adam seems to be cooking, so I guess we'll find out. But with no further ado, we'll catch you next time, Lanterns. Thanks for hanging out and talking Black Lanterns and Black Lantern October. Later, Lanterns.
Aftermath, you'll join my list of dead after I tear you in half. And I laughed at the thought of them controlling me. I'm the ultimate dragon that spawned everything. I resist and defy.